Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 99 of the I Rock Knits podcast. I think we have to have a celebration. On the next podcast, I will have podcasted 100 times. And some of you have been with me from the very beginning, where I had a lot to learn about podcasting. And I've been just sharing over the last number of years here. I think it's been 3 years. And I'm just so thankful that you're all still here. If you haven't subscribed, please do. I still am trying to grow the audience over here. And it's very hot today. I always look outside when I start the podcast. I don't know why that is, but it's very, very hot here today. So I was up early and I baked a rhubarb cake. I have shared that recipe before, or if you have the rhubarb balls scarf pattern, you got the recipe with that. It's one of my favorites. I went out and cut some rhubarb. I have a huge rhubarb plant. I need to divide it out a little bit because it's very overgrown. I can get tons and tons of rhubarb off of it, and I usually just make a few things. Sometimes rhubarb can just be so tart that you make a crisp. You might make strawberry rhubarb pie, and then this cake, which is my favorite, it has that caramelized broiled topping on it to die for. But I'm going to knit a knitting group tomorrow, and so I'm going to bring it along and share with everyone so I don't eat the whole cake myself. What am I wearing today? I am wearing my Derecho, and this is one of the patterns that we're going to talk about today. So I think we'll just do it right up front. This was done by Alison Green for Berroco. It became a super popular pattern, and when I first saw it, I wasn't a fan of how the yarn overs showed. Like, I didn't really love the look of that. I thought, oh, it's just kind of, and it's an interesting construction, right? Because they're not after every purl row. Some of the oldest stash I owned, it's like a red and white tweed, and it turned out, the whole thing in person looks kind of pink. On the screen it's looking kind of red, but it was just a tweed yarn. And I have another one on the needles because I went up to Bee Woolen, which is a yarn store here in the Twin Cities, just north, and they had this one display. And I was with friends, and they were like, well, yeah, you totally have to make that, Cori, right? I was like, oh, I don't know that I need another Derecho in my life. But this is Malabrigo Arroyo colorway, and it is turning out really fun. I am alternating skeins the entire way. That's the back, I think. Not that it really matters. They're fairly similar. But, yeah. So there you go. I'm alternating skeins, so I'm kind of getting that stripey effect. But the pooling isn't too bad anywhere. Not that I really noticed. So, yeah, it's 22 stitches to 4 inches, DK weight. Well, the dog just knocked over the light, so let me be right back. Buddy. Podcast without an interruption from the dog. Yes, he knocked my lights over, and that scared him, so then he was scared. He's doing fine. Some of you check in with him, about him often with me, and yes, he still is hanging in there. We got a cancer diagnosis at the beginning of March, but we saw the problem at the beginning of February. And so the vet had said 6 weeks to 6 months, and we are way past 6 weeks and heading into 6 months. He sleeps more, but we have not noticed any side effects whatsoever, and so he just wanted to be under the table by me, and he walked around the light and hit the cord. So there you go. Let's go back to talking about the Derecho. Seamless tee begins at the neck and is worked down. Easy eyelet stitches shape the yoke and add decoration to the neckline at the same time. It was written for Berroco Remix Light. Some of you may have some of that in your stash. It's knit on a 3 and a 5 needle. What else? And that's it, just top down. I would say that this is a pretty beginner friendly sweater pattern. This one is a little bit heavier DK, and my other one is more like sport, so I had to kind of manipulate my needle sizes on these, but turned out fine. It does have a long shirt tail front, so rounded at the bottom, in the front and the back, so kind of cute. The second sweater of the week this week is I redid my Hadley. Finally, after like 2 years. I originally knit this. It's knit in a cotton yarn, and it's by Veronik, Avery, and I went to block it in the red bled. So I got pink in between my chevrons here and up into here, and I was just sick about it. I was frustrated because I do believe I had wet my yarn a little bit and thrown it in the sink, just a little piece of yarn, and it hadn't bled. And when I went and ripped it out, I ripped it back, to here, and then I put this red yarn in the sink, and I soaked it, and it did not bleed, and I put some vinegar on it, and I don't know why it bled the first time, because I got no more real pink water. I left it in for a really long time, and so I think maybe that was part of the problem. But I got it reknit, and I need to steam the body because the body had been rolled up for so long. I did steam it some, but I'm still seeing some wrinkles in the front of it. I don't know, they don't show as well in real life as they do on the camera, which is strange. But anyway, it's a worsted weight sweater. It was done for Modern Daily Knitting. It was a knit along in 2016 where you're supposed to knit a sweater in a month. I did not knit it then. I had seen it. You guys know I love chevrons, and I had this heavier weight cotton. So it is a heavier sweater, and I kept the sleeves really short. I think they look kind of funky. This particular mannequin is a little bit broader in the shoulders than I am, so the sleeves look like they're kind of winging out a little bit, and I made it long so I could wear it with leggings. So I'm hoping that it's a summer sweater for air conditioning, right, because it's a little bit heavy. Let me see what else. It was knit originally in Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, and also in a Winterburn Aran Weight by Ba Ram Yu. 19 stitches on a 6 and an 8. It is bottom up in the round, which was lovely because then it was easy for me to rip back because I could just tear it down. It is originally done long sleeved with the chevrons also at the wrist, but the original pattern looked a lot like this one, and so that's what gave me kind of the inspiration to do it. Other than the yarn bleeding, it was a lovely knit. I told the story when I showed this last time that I cast on and I took it to a couple of movies. This is back in the day and I was just knitting in the round, and eventually I figured out that the body was like way too wide. I'd picked the wrong size for this yarn, and I had knit in the round a ton. So I sent it to Stacy, my friend, sample knitter, and said, hey, will you re-knit this back up for me, because I'm not going to rip it out and re-knit it. Like, it would have just sat in a bag. I was, how you get frustrated with something and you just can't, you don't want to fix it. And so she did. She re-knit it back up for me, and then I was good to go to knit the top. So this has had a number of iterations, been on the needles for many years, been reworked twice, and still hasn't been worn. So I'm hoping to wear it here shortly if we get any cool weather, or I'm going to go somewhere where I'll be sitting in air conditioning, then I'll probably put it on. But so kind of two sweaters today that I wanted to talk about. Let's do some shawls. I have a shawl. I taught my 50 Shades of Shawls class via Stephen B. Last week on Wednesday evening. Thank you to all of those of you who came. I got to see some familiar faces. You were all tiny little boxes across the top of the computer setup that they had there at the shop for me. But it went very well. I have not done shawls on Zoom before, and so I always get a little nervous about how it's going to translate. But I got really good feedback from the people in the class, and thanks, Ruth Ann, for your private message to me. But yeah, I got super good feedback, and people said it worked really well in that environment, and that it was a 2-hour class, and I just battled through. I just did shawl after shawl after shawl, talked about them quickly, and then moved right along, and people had a chance to ask questions. In that class, I try to show some shawls that maybe you're not familiar with, that aren't super popular. So I don't have the most popular Hohe and Stephen West shawls that everybody's knitting in that class. Try to show some shawls that should be given some love, as well as how to style them, how to wear them. And I'm going to teach it again, I think, here in the fall. So if you're interested in that, you can always contact me or your local yarn store to set up a Zoom, and then I can teach it for them. So that was a ton of fun. One of the shawls that came out of that I shared was Stephen B's Ponchini. And Stephen has written 3 or 4 Ponchini patterns, which are shawls that he seams into some type of poncho, but they can also stay as a shawl if you would prefer. And this is one that I have. I've knit this one twice. I really like it. I also knit it for my mom. It came in a mohair and a bamboo kit blend from Bee Sweet Yarns, and that's a collaborative out of Africa that Stephen has worked with. And so the yarn is lovely to work with, and then you've got this just really nice and easy stitch pattern, and there are 20 ways to wear the Ponchini. You can wear it draped down your back, in the front, wrapped twice. One of the ways that I did it is there's a tail right here along the edge. Can you see that? There's this tail that kind of hangs down. You can hang that in the front or not. But I brought that up from underneath. Well, maybe I'll do it real quick and then I'll show. Tail up from underneath and flopped it through the front. So it makes like a nice little wrap that will stay on because it's completely hooked together. But I have seen other shawls that have kind of a long tail, or ponchos or pontinis or whatever you want to call them, wraps, that where you bring that up from to the front and let it kind of become a wrap where it has another little bit more visual interest. So I showed that in the class, and that pattern is available through Stephen B. Ravelry as well. I think they run kits. If you don't belong to Stephen B's email, he does an email every day and they show kits, and it's not like I want to buy yarn every day, but I love seeing what they're putting together. I always open the Stephen B email. I met the guy who has actually done that, and he just does a really nice job of showing different designs and then what yarns you can put with them. So Stephen has a number of iterations on the project page for how it can be worn, but it is just a $7 pattern and knit on size 6s and 8s. Bee Sweet extra fine mohair and Bee Sweet bamboo were what was called for, but you could certainly knit it with any but probably DK to worsted weight yarn. And he has a bulky version of this. He has several different iterations. So when you go out to Ravelry, you can look at all the pictures and see which one you might like. But that came up in that class, and I thought I should share it. I have a few more shawls that I haven't gone through yet. I'm just getting to the very end of shawls and sweaters. And so then we're going to move on to some new ideas that I have for the podcast this fall when I start a new kind of season. I have a recipe for you guys this week. So I'm going a little out of order because we started with sweaters and shawls. But I bought this book, The Complete Salad Cookbook from America's Test Kitchen. We only liked a few of the recipes in here. So I have only had it, 2 weeks. And my husband is a huge salad lover. And this is not just lettuce salad. This is also salads with lentils and farro and couscous. So there are other types of salads in it. There are vegetarian salads and, salads with fish, all those kinds of things. But this one on the cover kind of got me in the mood, and I said to Ross, would you like to grill a steak and then we'll slice it up and put it on one of these salads? And he said sure. So I picked one from here that just had a bunch of ingredients, right? That's basically the key. You just want to have fun ingredients. So I roasted some asparagus briefly and then chopped that up to put in there. And then I boiled a couple of hard-boiled eggs and put that in there. But the thing that I wanted to tell you about is at the beginning, there are a bunch of dressings. So I made this avocado dressing. It's called creamy avocado dressing. It's 1 avocado, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, a teaspoon of grated lemon zest, 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, a garlic clove, salt, and pepper. And I put it in the blender, and it was a little lemony for us. I maybe was a little too heavy-handed with my lemon peel. I zested a bunch, and it had got a little tangy. So then I cut it with a little yogurt just to give you a heads up about that. And all you do is just process that for about 30 seconds and pour it over the salad, and it was delicious. So if you keep avocados on hand, And we know that you can freeze avocados, right? Because I've shared that tip, I think, on Instagram and here, that you can freeze an avocado. Yeah, it was a delicious, delicious salad. And I have another one picked out for this week with shrimp. And so yeah, I thought, well, I'll share that recipe. America's Test Kitchen shares a lot of recipes on their Instagram feed. And so I'm thinking that, it would be okay to share just the dressing, and I'll just make a list, kind of a listing of what came out of here. I don't know how they feel about that. If they're sharing it publicly, right, then, and I'm telling you all to buy the book, I think I'm okay. Because the book is really good. Really good. I like a book with tons of pictures. And this one has a picture for almost every salad in the entire book. Yeah. This just gives you food envy, right? Like, oh my gosh, it looks so good. Yeah, oh, peaches. I can't wait to get some good peaches. So there's your recipe for a little dressing. I have 2 finished objects this week. I don't always share finished objects, but I'm excited about this concept, and I know a lot of you have seen it probably on other podcasts, but I did knit a Musselburgh hat. And I think people were saying Musselburgh because it's spelt like Edinburgh, and the author lives over there. And so, but it is pronounced, it's spelled Musselburgh, B-U-R-G-H at the end. But this is a fingering weight hat. I use self-striping because my friend Jan in my knitting group did a self-striping sock yarn and brought it to knitting, and hers was darling. She used... what is that Canadian company's yarn? I'll think of it. Anyway, Biscot and C. But this is how it is. This is how it's knit. Yep. So you start at one end and you do a little cast on, and then you increase in 4 places till you get out to a certain number of stitches. And then you work in the round all the way down. And then when you get to a certain number of inches, then you decrease down. I was using an earth fingering weight skein of self-striping yarn, and I wanted to use it all. I wish I would have kept going. I had 5 grams left, and I was just kind of over it, right? Like I just got to that point, but I wish I would have used it till the very end because it is long enough, and I have not blocked it. But you just flip it inside itself here. And then you flip the edges, the ends up. I used a fingering weight yarn, but I used a size 3 needle, and I would go down a needle size if I did it again. It fits fine on but it's a little loose. So I may block it and dry it in the dryer to see if I can get it to just zhuzh down a little bit. But super interesting construction, and she wrote it for a bunch of different weights of yarn. So it's it has charts with what your gauge is, and then that tells you how many stitches to knit to. So a really well written pattern. Let me show you that. Written for a size 2.5, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So you can knit any yarn into this hat, and then it is doubled or folded over. Now, if you wanted to only knit this much of it without it being folded up, you could certainly do that as well. But Kylie's boyfriend, Stevie, has a large head, and I think that this would fit him fine, so I wasn't too worried about the fact that it was turning out a little bit bigger than like an average woman's head. I'm thinking instead of a 20, it's about a 22 with the, I just didn't want to knit on a 2, but I should have. Our favorite swatchless hat pattern just got an update. It now includes 4 new finer gauges, perfect for fine sock yarns. There are 3 versions of this pattern: a print 3-column version, meaning it's reduced down, a mobile version so that you can see it well on your phone, and a low vision version, which I think is what most knitting designers are going to start going to, having multiple options for how you read your pattern. If you read it on a phone, you want it in a different format and if you're low vision, you want it in a different format. So that is starting to happen. For people, this came out in December of 2019, and there are like 6,000 projects. So she hit a really popular. But I thought the top was so cool. And then I was kind of bummed that it went to this kind of murky part and then was bright again. But you really do have two hats. So it starts out bright, and then it got real murky, and then you have the bright part again. So I have people that I could knit this for Christmas, but it was a lot of knitting. So I don't think I would knit it again for gifts because it was just so much knitting. I had it in the car in my purse. So that's why it probably took me so long, because I cast on in April and I just finished it. But I've just been taking it with me places, and that worked. And then I have a hat pattern to share with all. Just sent the testing call out today. So some of you have seen this because you were on Instagram. But this is my new hat pattern. And I am so tickled with how it turned out. I just think the colors shine. So I did a little call on Instagram and asked people if they would name it for me, and the name I picked is called Wear It with Pride. It is Pride Month. I think that's kind of what motivated me to get this knit up. This had been in a bag for several years. These are the colors that I used in the owl sweater that I knit for the Minnesota 52 book. My original first sweater was knit in this gray with these rainbow colors. The yarn is Stone Hedge Fiber Mill in Michigan, and the yarn is Shepherd's Wool Worsted. And Stone Hedge is a mill that produces lovely, less expensive yarns similar to like a Cascade 220. And so I purchased, they have lovely colors, and these were all leftovers. So I knit the large, I knit the medium, and I knit the small, or the baby, and I made a pom-pom for the baby hat because there's nothing like a baby hat. I couldn't get the decreases quite right. I just thought, I kept trying different ways. I ended up going back to my first way. I think they ended up turning out kind of pretty. It looks nice. But I thought that they were a little wide right there, like anybody cares. But I thought that decrease, that first green one was a little wide. So I knit it again. And it's bigger. There's more green on this one. So I didn't like that as well. And then I have a pom on this, so you can't see this one. But so it's in 4 sizes. I sent out the testing call. I don't think I'll probably put it out till later in the summer, but I thought I would show it because these are fresh off my needles. I knit this one yesterday. It took me the entire day. We were watching golf at our house, and it was hot, and I just wanted to stay in and get those done so the pattern could be written so I could send it out to testers. So yeah, that's going to be called Wear It with Pride. It'll come out later, but if you have worsted weight minis or scraps, these colors, the 6 colors that you need, take less than 5 grams of yarn. So you could use very small scraps and get that done. There were a ton of ends to weave in, right? Because I didn't carry my color up, which you could do, but from yellow to yellow was quite a long way, and that's a lot of carrying of yarns. So there is a YouTube video by a local Minnesota designer, Susan Rainey, who shows you how to spit splice and connect your yarn so that you don't get a thickness where you're changing colors and that there are no ends to weave in when you're done. So I won't explain it, but there's a 14-minute video where she goes through how she would knit something without having to weave in ends when you're done. And the process is a little cumbersome, it takes you a bit to do it, but you have no ends when you're done. So I've linked that in the pattern as well, because I know that there will be people who just hate weaving in ends. But I think the baby one turned out the cutest. So yeah, got those things off the needles and clearing out some of my whips, so that felt really good this week. What have I been watching? I have been watching Goliath on Amazon, maybe, with Billy Bob Thornton and William Hurt. Have any of you been watching that? There's like 4 seasons of it. I had never heard of it. Don't know why. He's a lawyer, a washed up lawyer, and he gets a chance to help this woman with a case, and they take on the big corporate business. Very good. Very, very well done. I liked it so much that I said to my husband, I think you would enjoy this. Do you want to start watching the 2nd season with me? And he said, sure. So we watched 2 episodes, and he's like, yeah, it's good. It's, it's the little guy taking on the big. I assume every season they do a new case, probably, and follow a new case. And there's some, crime, and they kill someone, they beat the guy up, and, but he's got some quirky female characters around him that were really fun to kind of watch. There's a very interesting backstory about him and one of the women. So yeah, I would recommend if you're looking for something to watch this summer. Can't wait for the Tour de France to start July 1st. I'm going to tape it so I can watch every day, 5.5 hours. Get up first thing in the morning early and watch every day and knit my way through the Tour de France, which I love. You do not have to like bicycle racing or ever have bicycle raced to watch the tour. They show a lot of the countryside. I love telling the backstories of some of the riders. I just find it fascinating that these men and women can ride to the tops of mountains, and they just ride the entire way. Like, I can't get up the hill from my house here on my bike. So anyway, that's what I've been watching. Then I have a stack of things that I need to show you that I saw on the internet. I keep finding things, and then I say, okay, I'll tell that next time, and now I have a folder full of things I need to show you that I saw on the internet, so I'm going to just do a whole bunch today. I won't spend a whole lot of time, and then we'll get over to the audiobooks, okay? The most recent that I saw was this Whidbey bag. Oh, did anybody else see this on Instagram? My goodness. It's so cute. This is a backpack that came out June 2022, so it's very recent, by Wool and Pine Designs. They're doing a lovely job of doing designs to support their yarn that they do. It's DK weight, 24 stitches and 28 rows. It takes about 500 yards, so 2 or 3 skeins, depending on the size of put up you have in your skein. We're so stoked on this stash busting backpack. We've been toting around with our whips everywhere we go. Not only is Whidbey bag a super cute way to bust stash yarn into a practical wearable project bag, it's also super fun and easy to knit. It's knit top down in the round seamlessly, finished with an easily customizable I-cord straps, which also act as a drawstring to the bag. No sewing, no color work, no lining. All yarn weights are invited. And then you weave. So you give the stockinette that you've knit structure by weaving your colors through. Fascinating. Such a brilliant idea. Oh, and the projects. You got to go look at everybody's projects, because super fun to see all the different colors that people are knitting it out of. I just think it would be a great knitting bag to wear to a festival, because it would be lightweight and you could just put your stuff in it. I don't think you could carry super heavy items like a heavy wallet and a camera or something like that, but if you're carrying your project on your back, so I wanted to share that for sure. Then I saw this Larika Matashi on Instagram, and I went over and looked at her items, and this sweater is flippin' amazing. Do I want to knit it? Absolutely not. But who thought of that? Like, it is so clever. I am just, this is a Kosovo-born designer, and she does unusual embellishments, embroidered cherries and watermelons, heart-shaped cutouts, and old world crochet techniques she learned before immigrating to New York City. I mean, really. So I will link her so that you can go over and look, but I was like, and I'm digging the pants. Like, the pants are super interesting too. So she's literally a fashion designer, and I love when I see something like that. So I have a new little niece was 2 in February, who I just met in May because of COVID. I had never, it's a great niece. So I have a new little niece who was 2 in February, who I just met in May because of COVID. I had never, it's a great niece. I had never met her. And my daughter and her boyfriend were just asked to be the godparents of this little baby. And so I had this in my folder. It's called Knit Baby Doll Patterns. It is worsted weight yarn and by a pattern by Amy Gaines. And it's just these tiny little dolls. And I thought, oh gosh, wouldn't that be cute to knit up for the girls? And you just stuff them with polyfill, pair of size 4 US knitting needles. Yeah, super simple knitting. You make a little tail at the bottom. I'm not a huge toy knitter. I have knit some toys and I like having made them. But I thought, okay, I'm going to share that today. Then I saw this beautiful rainbow shawl on Knit Picks. It's called the Diatom Shawl, Rainbow 41198. It's by Kerin Dimeler-Laurence, and it's a lace shawl. Kind of looks like a triangle, but it might be Shetland construction. I can't tell from the picture. But it was in rainbow, and I thought, perfect to share for Pride Month. I have a rainbow shawl that I love to wear during this month, just to show support. I have a neighbor who they fly their pride flag and I fly mine as well. So I thought, yeah, today would be a good time to share that too. It's really pretty, and I'm sure it would be lovely in one solid color, but I do like that it is done in rainbow. And I think I might have shown this one before, but it didn't get thrown away, so I'm going to share it again. Alpaca, I'll pack a Cowl for Rhinebeck, so play on words there, by Deb Jacullo. And it's a worsted weight cowl with little sheep, and then there's an alpaca in the mix there. Super cute. It would be great for Rhinebeck. If you do not want to, if you're ever going to Rhinebeck and you don't want to knit a sweater, I think sheep themed hats and cowls and things like that are super fun. Then I also want to share that my friend Sharon over at Knit Style always does a bag of the month with matching yarn. She has a bag collaborator and they do a yarn and bag collaboration, and this last one that I saw when I printed this out was called Whale Song. It was a project bag and matching yarn kit, and she has lovely bags and yarns. So if you like that kind of thing, please go over and take a look. I will link it in the show notes. This one came up for the Splash Pad party. So if you're a part of the Splash Pad party that's being hosted by Boston Jen of the Down Cellar Studios podcast, then you might have already seen a post about this, but Sharon just does great colorways. They do a lot of cocktail themed colorways, so I thought I would share that. And then I don't know if you guys all saw this Invisible Jumpers book by Joseph Ford, but he knits sweaters to match environments, and then he places the person in the environment and takes the picture so that the sweater kind of becomes invisible. Fascinating. The book is available on Amazon. It is out of print, kind of harder to find. It came out, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago. It's just amazing what this guy did. Fascinating. So you might want to go take a look at that. And then I saw this lovely yarn called Lang Snowflake. And this was on the Three Kittens Needle Arts website. Three Kittens is a local yarn store to me. They are in Mendota Heights, so across the city from me, so kind of southeast. for those of you in the Twin Cities area. But this yarn makes snowflakes when you knit it. Like, you don't do it yourself. So you get little snowflakes, and the yarn has a long color repeat in it. So there's a blue, like a dark blue, a brown, a pinky red, and a green. It's called Lang Yarns Snowflake. So if you're looking for yarn that does all the work because you just like knitting plain hats, this would be for you. Really fun. So there we go. I wanted to check off all of those things. Then someone came to my knitting group with a new knitting bag, and she shared it with all of us. Judy shared it with all of us, and it's by Tom Bin. And if you're not aware of Tom Bin makes travel bags, zipper, kind of soft fabric, but sturdy backpacks and bags and things like that. And he has a knitter's bag that is out. It's a tote. It's under the tote bag collection. It's got handles and pockets. There's a clear pouch. So I will link that as well, because you can always use another travel bag, right? And this one was made specifically for knitters. They contacted someone, who was it? Was it Clara or Amy? Someone who helped them with the construction of it. And then they had knitters test it, and then there's a whole video on the website about this bag. So I thought, gotta tell you all about that. Then we still have the iRock Knits Knit Along going on. So we are still knitting along. It is ending the end of June here on June 30th. I will close the thread on July 1st before I leave town. And you can still enter if you have time to knit a hat, or if you're still knitting something, or socks. So I want to make sure that everybody knows that you have to post your finished object in the finished object thread, or use the hashtag iRockKnitsCal, K-A-L, on Instagram. I will be drawing from both places, and I have 25 prizes, something like that. A lot of prizes. So I will be drawing those and announcing them on the next podcast. But if you've been chatting in the thread and you finish something, don't not post it in the finished objects. You have to go to the finished objects thread and post your final picture. So, because I see people sharing in the chatter thread, which is great, but if you haven't posted, and then, or if you're not on Ravelry, or you don't want to post on Ravelry, or if you don't know how, I have a instruction sheet for how to post a project in a thread. So just email me at Cori@iRockKnits.com, and I will send you that instruction sheet for how to do it. It's not hard. And then you post it, and I will be drawing from those two places just after the 4th of July when we get back. We're going up to the lake fishing. We decided to go. If Cody stays healthy, we're gonna go. So then I have a coupon code, and I forgot to share it last time. So Bags by Awesome Granny gave us a coupon code, and she has the prettiest bags. So the coupon code is iRock20, IROCK 20, and 20% off everything in her Etsy shop. So someone go over and use that, okay? Because I feel bad that I haven't been like shouting it out enough. And she donated a beautiful bag for the prizes for the cowl. So I will also be giving away one of her bags. Bags by Awesome Granny. Okay. I had such a good time teaching for Stephen B. And we got such good feedback on the Zoom. And I had already scheduled to teach 2 more in-person classes with them. But they called, and we scheduled 3 more virtual classes with them. So I am going to be teaching Fixing Mistakes in the Shop on the 26th of June. I'm going to teach 50 Shades of Sweaters on the 13th in the shop. Okay, those were previously scheduled. Then the virtual ones are July 21st, When Knitting Goes Wrong, Fixing Mistakes. If you do not know how to fix mistakes in your knitting, then this might be a class for you. You knit up a little swatch, and then we spend time in class fixing all of the mistakes in the swatch. And it is very easy to knit the swatch. You're just doing some yarn overs, you're doing a knit two together, and then we drop down and fix them. We fix a cable. So this is an advanced beginner class. This is not an advanced, extremely good knitter class. Like this isn't going to teach you how to well, there are some tricky mistakes in this swatch, but nothing super hard. And I've never done it on Zoom. So I'm going to screen share my hands the entire time, but I won't be able to come around and help you. And that's how I usually teach it. So I just want the caveat to be out there that you'll be able to watch and you'll be able to have your swatch there. But if you get stuck, it will be hard for me to tell you where you went wrong. But I went ahead and made a video tutorial sheet. So there, with this class, you get a mini skein and a fix-it tool as part of your registration. And then you also, so they're mailing out the mini skein and the fix-it tool. You knit your swatch with the mini skein. And then I made a video tutorial lesson. So each of the little steps in the workshop are called a challenge. Challenge number 1, we drop down and fix a purl and ladder back up. Challenge number 2, we fix a yarn over and knit two together. We fix a cable, we fix in garter stitch, those kinds of things, right? So then I went ahead and made videos for each of the things so you have a reference to that after taking the class. You'll literally have a video, plus you also get a copy of the class. The video that I did in class, they send you the link. So after I taught shawls last week, they sent us all the link of the Zoom so that you have that. You could watch it again, like if you needed to reference something. So I think that's going to work. It's just, I'm a little nervous about it. Then I'm going to teach how to use Ravelry like a pro. That's virtual on July 29th. These are all from 5:30 to 7:30 Central Standard Time. And that is using features on Ravelry that you might not know are there. It's not too nitty gritty. It doesn't get into stuff that's really complicated. It's just some things that you probably don't know and aren't using that could really help you. And then the last one I'm teaching is 50 Shades of Sweaters. I've never taught that one virtual. And that is on August 3rd from 5:30 to 7:30. These are all my website and they will be listed in the show notes. Then I'm going to be woolen July 15th and 16th. I don't know if there are spots available. That class went live last Friday, Thursday or Friday. It's a lock-in, which means that you go on Friday and then you go on Saturday. You don't actually get locked in, but they call it a lock-in because it's an overnight. It's not, you're not staying in the shop, right? It's an overnight. But I am teaching Ravelry on Friday, and I'm teaching sweaters on Saturday at that lock-in, so you can look that up if you're local and you wanted to go. And then I'm going to South Dakota in September, and I'm going to Ohio in November. So my schedule is on my website. I have people ask all the time, are you ever coming here, so-and-so? And so I just wanted to reiterate that. I have 2 Cori stories today. Should I start with the good one or the bad one? The bad one first. I'll start with the good one. My daughter graduated from law school on Saturday, and it was amazing. It was so cool. They get to wear the really cool robes, right, with the velvet on them and the kind of the beret type graduation cap. And it was outside at the St. Paul Saints Stadium. It was supposed to be super hot, but it was lovely. It was breezy. We sat under the overhang, so we were in the shade. The graduates were on the field, and they were in the sun, and they were in those gowns, and they were really hot. But the program was streamed live, so my parents could watch it in Sioux Falls. They had 2 speakers that were fantastic. It was really moving to watch a kid who we did not think Kylie could learn how to read when she was little. She was really struggling. And she's a super introvert, and we know that now, but she did not like social interaction in preschool and kindergarten. And she had the same kindergarten teacher that went with her to 1st grade, and that was amazing. And we are still in touch with that woman who lifted our child up
But we sent her to a tutor. We sent her to Huntington because we thought she was not getting it. And she was just taking her sweet time, and we shouldn't have been worried at all, right? Like, but you do when you have kids and they don't seem to be making the mile markers that other parents are talking about, which can get in your head, right? Like, so-and-so's child is reading, it's not kindergarten yet, you know? And yeah, we were really uncertain. And for a kid to go through school for 20 years straight, just all the way through, right? She's 25 years old and she's been in school that entire time. It's pretty awesome that she stuck with it and got through it during the pandemic. They tried not to make the graduation ceremony all about the pandemic, which is really nice because, you know, what you could say to these kids is, you overcame. And no, really, it sucked. It really sucked to do law school online, virtual, right? Not be able to go to the library, not to be able to study with study groups, not to have that sense of community. She doesn't feel like she knows people from her class, and usually those kids make friends and are friends for years after because they became lawyers together. And, you know, so anyway, now she's studying for the bar. The bar is July 27 and 28. Please mark it on your calendar to say a little prayer for my child. So the whole first day is all multiple choice, and then the second day is all essay. You have to apply they give you a sample, and then you have to apply the law in multiple ways for each of the samples in an essay. And there's a rubric that they score them on. And then she won't find out until September, maybe even October, whether or not she passed, but she will start her clerkship. So about 75 to 80% of kids from her school pass the first time they take it. So she's very hopeful. But the study time is 500 hours. That's what they tell them. So she bought a program that's helping her space out her time to go through it. And I thought this was really fascinating. So because we can do everything on our phone now, this program is also an app on her phone. So she has flashcards and multiple choice questions on her phone. So no matter where she is, she can be doing questions. It's also on her computer because she writes essays, and you can send them in and get them graded and stuff like that. But after each multiple choice question or each flashcard, at the bottom it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then she can say, I totally knew the answer to this one and I got it right. 1. Number 3, I think I knew it. I kind of wasn't sure, but I got it right or wrong. And then 5, didn't know, totally guessed, got it right or wrong. And then the program fixes, like, they keep continuing to question her on the ones that she totally didn't know. So there's like an algorithm that is telling them the ones she got wrong, which would make sense, but then also the ones that she may have guessed on or didn't quite know the answer to that she got right, that she might need to be retested on. Is that not fascinating? Like, that I'm sure that I'm behind the times on this. But as a teacher, I was just like, that is amazing that they can track how she's doing as she goes. Then it gives her a percentage of how far she is toward the completion of her hours to finish studying. And so it's kind of a 9 to 5 every day, all day. She has to be in the office in their house just studying, and then Stevie makes lunch and they take a lunch break, and then they go for a walk outside for a few minutes, and then she goes back in because it's all self-taught. So when you finish law school, I don't know if this is interesting, fast forward if it's not, but when you finish law school, you have not taken all the classes that are tested on the bar, which I don't understand why it's not just another year and then you take everything, but you don't. So it's 3 years of law school called L1, 2, and 3, and L1 and 2, you really take the basic law classes. And then at the end of 2 and 3, you take the things that you're most interested in. So you can choose like an area of the law that you might be interested in practicing, which means you come out without having taken, let's say Kylie never took insurance law or, whatever. That can still be tested on the bar. So there's a list of subjects that are tested on the bar, and then you have to teach yourself that course during these 500 hours of study time. So Kylie had 4 classes that she had to teach herself, and they're highlighted green, yellow, red. So the reds are, she has no idea about any of it. They weren't covered in any of her classes. She just has to go over and try to get the basic. Then the yellows are, these are tested on the bar, and she might have had a week of it in one of her classes, so it's more like a review. And then the greens are all the classes that she took that are on the bar that she only really has to review. So the whole thing, the whole process is so fascinating to me that, and she was going to send her dad and I a couple of the essay question prompts where they give you a situation and let's say a crime has been committed and then this, and this happened. And then you as the lawyer have to say, okay, number 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? These are the 4 things that I can talk about in my essay that happened during this crime and how it would be applied. But if you only find 2 and you're missing 2, then even though your essay might be well written, if you don't hit them, that's how you don't pass the bar, right? Is that the multiple choice, that's obvious. You got it completely wrong. But on an essay, I'm like, so subjective. How do they do that? Well, there's a rubric, and you have to hit the certain points that particular prompt. Just fascinating to me. So 27th and 28th of July. Now, the 27th of July is the anniversary of my first date with Ross. And so I told her, that is a good sign. Because it's all about luck, right? No, she's like, thanks, Mom. But anyway, she is studying hard. She's doing everything she needs to do to try. And it was really cool to see her get her Juris Doctorate. So she is now Kylie Eichelberger, JD, which means she has her Juris Doctorate in law. And that is similar to one guy got his master's degree in law. And that is for people who live in other countries, who practice law or want to practice law in America, and they can get their master's in law here. Isn't that interesting? So there was one guy from Germany who got that. And then they had a Native American student who spoke about the land that the graduation ceremony and the college is on, which was so cool. He just spoke about there were like 4 different tribes, and then the tribes had different iterations and all these names that we recognize, Ojibwe, and I grew up in South Dakota, so Sisseton and Wapakute, and like all the names in the upper Midwest of different places are all Indian names. They're all Native American. Like, we know that, but they honored the land that the ball field was on by having him read who owned that land before us. Oh, it gives me goosebumps. It was really cool the way they did it. It was really neat. Okay, now I have a little bad story. So right now my house is in uproar and chaos. I talked a little bit. We ordered new office furniture. We're getting new garage doors. The 4-season porch on the back of the house is falling off. It's not falling off. Our house isn't that old. It has a big crack above the window. Big crack. So it heaved from the frost and the snow. It went up and down and cracked the 4-season porch. So we need a contractor to come out and tell us how to fix it, and is it right? Like, is it an issue? But no matter what, we have to probably fix the crack. The dog, right? The dog. We're on edge about the dog all the time. What else? We have one more thing. I'll think of it. Anyway, we have all this. We have all this stuff going on, right? And so the custom office furniture that we ordered a window bench seat. Maybe I'll take a picture, because it's a bump out in our office, and I had this little leather bench sitting there that I opened up, and we would keep stuff in there like samples. But I had outgrown it, so I bought another little bench and put it in the dining room because they both have these bump outs. So I have a little red leather bench here too for my samples, and I bought those clear plastic zip bins to put everything in and labeled them. And so we decided that if we could get a window seat built, but not built in, something you could take with you, and it has 4 drawers underneath it, that it would be a lot more space. So then we're like, yes. And the credenza, my husband had a 2-drawer credenza in there that matched the desk. And when he would pull it out over the years, because the drawers were so big, they got wonky, right? So They wouldn't close all the way. And the furniture that we bought when we moved into this house was nice, but nothing, it wasn't pressed board, but wasn't bad, right? So we ordered a desk. We had a custom cabinet company come out. The designer came out. He measured the desk. He measured for the credenza. He measured for the window seat, right? And then we gave them a piece of, we have like some wainscoting in that room. And so we gave them a piece of wood, a shelf to match the color so that it would match. Big upgrade for us, right? Like lots of dollars. I spend tons of time in there. Ross spends time in the weekend in there. Just thought it would be nice to have, and to be able to put some stuff away. Get a little bigger file cabinet thing. So it was supposed to come the Tuesday after Memorial Day. And they called and it wasn't done. The front panel of the desk didn't come in or something that they needed to stain or whatever. Whoever built it, then I think they probably sent it to a staining room. So we're like, fine, it's going to come the next week. Then they bring out the furniture and the guys are trying to get it in the front door, and the pieces are big and they're hefting them in. All the drawers are separate. The drawers are outside of the cabinets, and there's some hardware, but it's all wrapped in plastic. So it gets put in the office. It's all wrapped around everything. So we don't unwrap it, right? You have a guy come out to install, because this is a cabinet company. So they're used to doing cabinetry that has to be hung on the wall. And ours doesn't need to be installed, although it does need to be bolted to the floor, because now we have figured out much later that if you pull out the drawer, it can tip forward. And our old one must have been weighted in the back because it didn't tip. You couldn't have both drawers open, but it never tipped. But anyway, so that's in there. And the other night I went into the closet in there to get something out, and I walked by the desk and I just grazed my hand along the top of it, and I was like, that seems really tall. Like that desk seems really, it's big. And I mean, a desk in the middle of an office is it's a big desk. And so then Ross says to me the next night, he said, I think the desk is too tall. I think they made the desk too tall. I said, that's weird, because when I was walking by, I said, it's probably on wood, right? It's probably on blocks. And he's like, nope, I unwrapped the plastic and it's not on box. It's not on like wood or, anything. I'm like, great. So he goes and gets the office chair and he sits me in it. Right? It's too tall. So then he's like, well, he's livid. The drawer fronts did not come, and it has to be put together. And I don't know why they put that together when it comes. Some carpenter here is going to know why we just got these drawers that were boxes, and then they hook the drawer fronts on once it's here, and then they put the knobs on once it's here, so they're drilling while they're in your house. I don't know. But anyway, that was the process. And the drawer fronts weren't there, so that was going to have to be brought out with this guy who comes to put it together. Okay, it's going to take a little longer. Okay. But now the desk is too tall. So Ross calls the designer and he's like, that's standard. Well, we Googled what's the standard height of a desk, and it's 28 to 30 inches. And our desk is 32. And we are short people. Like, I'm 5'3" on a good day, and Ross is like 5'8". He would say 5'9". But we're not tall people. And he literally measured our old desk, which was not too tall. And so, but we signed off, because we went up to their showroom where they had no desk to show us. So that was part of the process that was really frustrating. They had lots of cabinets, and we had to pick our knobs. So we drove way up north, an hour up north, and they didn't have a desk, but they had the plans, and we looked over the plans, but we didn't measure our stuff. We did not measure for the window seat. We did not measure for he came. We were in the room with him. He measured it all and wrote it all down. So we trusted that he measured it. I think he probably didn't measure the height of the desk and just assumed it was like 32, but it is too tall. And we have no recourse. Like, we signed off. So Ross, the designer's like, that's standard. And Ross is like, we paid all this money. Oh, we were livid. We were just livid. Well, our friend who has used this company before for custom cabinets had a guy who she recommended to do the install, but it's not one of their guys. And she said, I just think he's better if you want his name. So I called her and I said, can I have this Tom? Because, and she's like, oh, he's so good. He's a carpenter and, he will do a good install for you and he'll make sure that, the drawers are on right or whatever. Well, then in the meantime, they send the drawer guy out and he comes and he puts all the drawers together and puts all the knobs on because everything else looks great but the desk. And then Tom says, I can fix the desk. I can fix it. How high up is it off the ground? How low are the bottom drawers? Well, there's definitely we can get, I don't know how he's going to do it. Like, it is all put together. But then one of the shelves didn't come. There's a little shelf on the side above your tower that you have room for like paper or whatever. That wasn't there. It has been a huge challenge because in the meantime, we had the desk and credenza hauled away by a lady who was going to refinish all of it and use it. And we are living out of boxes. So all of our files, all my pattern files, all of the entire desk drawers, it's all in this room, in boxes everywhere. There's a cabinet, TV here, right here. There's a printer. There's the computer with the tower sitting on top of the dining room table. We are living, and we can't, like the other day, we're like, where's the checkbook? Where's the calculator, right? Like, this was supposed to all happen one right after the other. And now Tom's out of town until the end of June, and then we don't know how busy he is after that. So we're going to live in, so we decided yesterday to set the bench in place and put the credenza in place. We could put our files, right, in the credenza, and I got a little file cabinet, so I could put that back. Like, I could put the samples in. Well, that's when we figured out that we can't put the files in because if you open the drawers, the desk tips forward, and Tom will, bolt it on the inside to the floor, so we can't put the files in. And Ross has 4 or 5 boxes of Sterilite boxes full. It's just been chaos. Problem number 2, we are getting new garage doors. And our garage, we have an extra wide garage, Ross, that's why we bought this house. It's a lovely house, but we bought it for the garage because he loves car time, garage time. It has this extra space. It's extra wide, but our 2-stall garage part is extra wide. We have an extra wide door, but not extra wide lifter capacity. So the door is not technically, we've had the door break twice, and the thing that lifts it up, the garage door opener, but the railings and stuff are not heavy duty according to this new garage company people. And the trim that they put on the garage door front keeps popping off, and we've glued it back on for years, and they're not very weather insulated, and he spends all his time out there in the summer and the winter, and he heats it. And so he's just like, if we got a better garage door, so we got something with like wood on the front, so we have to pick a stain color. We have a lot going on in the front of our house. We have shakes and stone and window boxes and 3 colors, trim, and then 2 colors on the front of the house. And this was a parade home, so they did a lot of fancy stuff to make it look, and there's just a lot going on. Like, the tops of my windows have the little hashtag bars in them, but not the bottom. Like, it's weird. Like, there's a lot of, the house is beautiful from the outside. It makes it sound like it's wonky. It's not, but we have painted, I can't tell you how many boards with cedar, and we can't get a stain color. The first one was like walnut. It looked black. We held it up. You're holding up these little boards. It looked black. The second one looked orange. You know how oak, this is cedar, but you know how oak can kind of have that orange undertone? It looked really orange. I love orange, but I don't want 3 orange garage door, right? Like a double and a single garage door that's orange. And so we're standing out there, and we can't pick. And I said, this is a huge decision. It's not paint. If we don't like it, we can't fix it. Like, if we don't like what we pick. So we called the garage door company. We said, certainly other people have had trouble picking stain. and not found the colorway they need. So then they referred us to this lady who works for Sherwin-Williams or Hirschfield. She's a designer that will help you pick. And I said, she's going to come and she's going to say, you need to paint your house. Because we just had our house painted 3 years ago. And we just did the same colors that it was before. And I don't love them, but that's the color that the house was, right? Like, it's kind of greeny brown. It like, whatever. So that now we have a call into that lady to try to help us with that. The contractor was supposed to come 2 weeks ago on a Wednesday at 5 o'clock. It was the car show night in town. First night, we want to go up there, but Ross says, guy's going to come at 5, then we'll go up. Because it starts at 4, but we're like, okay. He didn't show up. Contractor didn't come. Texted him, called him, didn't answer. And we know this guy, like he's done other stuff for us. He just got held up, so we didn't make the car show because by the time we figured out he wasn't coming, Ross went to run an errand and he's like, well, you stay here. I'll go, I don't know where he had to go, but I'll go pick up whatever I need and then I'll come back and, and then so we didn't get to go. So all that to say that, nothing terrible has happened to us. But my husband's best friend was recently diagnosed with bone cancer. So they're going through that. My mother, who you all know has had multiple surgeries, had 3 teeth fall out last Saturday. She had fillings and they just crumbled. They just broke. And so she had 3 front teeth. 3 teeth just kind of, she's biting something and they just, part of them. So Monday she had a emergency appointment at the dentist, and then he sent her right to an implant specialist. And my mom's super tough. She does not have Novocaine when she goes to the dentist. She's always been that way. She hates Novocaine. I know a lot of people hate Novocaine, but she said, the guy said, I'm going to have to put you under. And she said, oh, you don't have to put me under. I'm a tough broad, my mom. I never have Novocaine. He goes, oh, you're going to have Novocaine, he says. And Mom didn't know. She should have asked, but she didn't know because she's had so many surgeries. She just didn't want to be put under. And I'm sure it was just that twilight. Anyway, 3 hours she was on the table. And the table had like heat and massage, but they hammer those implants in to your jaw. Like they hammered, and she did not know. And she did it. So now she's all, sore and swollen, and they put 3 implants in, which cost, $5,000 or something. And then those are temporaries, like they make temporaries, right? So then you have to spend another $2,000 to get the real ones put on. So I just keep feeling like we have all this stuff, and now I need to go to Sioux Falls. I need to see my parents because they always are saying, yeah, we're good. Things are good. But then we find out, 2 days later that Mom had implants put in on Monday. So we're going on Friday. It's their 62nd wedding anniversary on Saturday. But I teach on Sunday. So we're going on Friday and coming back on Saturday just because Ross hasn't seen him. I was down in May, but anyways, we need to go there. And it's just been... Last week, though, in the midst of all this crazy, I got to go on a riverboat knitting cruise, and it was awesome. That day I was like, I shouldn't go. Like, things are so chaotic here, and we just can't seem to get on top of stuff, and it's hot. It was going to be hot. It was going to be 95 degrees. I'm like, no one's going to want to knit. Even if it's on the river, we're going to be hot, and then we're going to eat on the river like it's we paid, and none of that came true. All of it was lovely. It was air conditioned. It was windowed on the first level, and big 8 tables of 8 with white tablecloths and amazing food. And we had 8 friends that we gathered that showed up. And you could go up on the upper part, and we left from Stillwater, and we went down the river. We came back. This is the St. Croix. And then we have Minnesota, Mississippi, and St. Croix rivers here, and they're very windy. And we went under the new bridge, and we came back. We all knit, and we laughed, and we ate. It was delightful. If you are local or want to come to town, they do 2 in the spring, Darn It Anyway yarn store, and they do 2 in the fall. And I think they're all booked, but you could put your name on the waiting list. It was super fun. Super fun. Highly recommend. I had no idea it was going to be. I thought we were going to be on one of the paddle boats, which they have those too, but you sit outside on like benches. That's kind of what my expectation was. But we were on a beautiful riverboat. So I'll put some pictures in of that so that you can see that, because that was just lovely. Absolutely fun. And I'm not complaining. I'm just explaining why I did not have a Zoom last week, because I had said that I would announce a Zoom on the last podcast when Matt was with me, and I forgot. And then things got crazy at my house, and then I was teaching, and I had the cruise on Tuesday, and I taught on Wednesday, and things just got, and then Kylie was graduating on Saturday. I just felt like, wow, there are weeks when I have nothing, and this lately, it's just been a lot. And can we live without our computer in the office for a while? Absolutely. Not a problem. We're hooked up. It's right there. It's going to be fine. But, we've just both got a little irritable. And that's also not fun, right? When you're mad, and so you're kind of snipping because you're both frustrated with the fact that you can't move this stuff out of the way, and you're trying to find what you need to find. Like the checkbook, what file box is the checkbook in? Weird stuff, right? Because we just thought it would sit out for a day, maybe 2, and we'd put it back in, and now it's going to be weeks and weeks. So there's your Cori stories. I kind of went on and on. Whatever. So now that I finished my hats, because I just had to get that pattern out of my brain, I have the Derecho to finish up. I have my tweed cardigan to finish up. I'm so excited to be knitting on sweaters here for the next few nights. We're going to go to Sioux Falls, so I'll have 4 hours of knitting time on the way down and back in the car, which I love knitting in the car while he drives. That's awesome. So tell me what you're knitting on. Tell me what you're watching. Tell me what you're reading, so we can share. I will share the audiobooks, because I just decided to change the order this week. I read 5 audiobooks this time, and I would say 4 of them were amazing. Let's do the audiobooks. The first one I want to tell you about is A Discovery of Witches. I had never read this. I don't know why. It's been super popular. It's a trilogy. There are 3 books in the series. It was 24 hours long. Woman doing research in England, has been a witch her entire life, but tries not to use magic, does not want to be a witch, doesn't want to use magic, wants to earn things on her own merit. She meets this guy who happens to be a vampire. But the storyline is really good. Fascinating. Lots of research went into the characters and what they're studying and what they're doing, and many of you will say, well, yeah, of course, well aware of what that book is about, Cori, but then they made it into a television series, and I always like to watch the series after I've read the book. So I just finished that one this morning and really enjoyed it. Then I listened to The Brave by James Beard, and Colin can't help himself. He has a unique condition that finds him counting every letter spoken to him. It's a quirk that makes him a prime target for bullies. He is a Native American. Mom is Native American. Dad lives in California. He's been living with Dad. He never met Mother. Interesting backstory. But then he has trouble in school because every time someone says something to him, he has to count the number of letters in what they said, and then he has to say it out loud. So he'll go 7, and then he'll answer 13, and then he'll answer. And I don't know if it never says whether or not this is considered a form of autism, or if it's just something that he has, or if it's just a made-up thing that the author did. The story is so good. This is a young adult novel. It takes place in Minnesota. He gets shipped back to Minnesota to live on the reservation with his mother, who is a teacher, and he doesn't know anything about his Native American heritage. His father was struggling to be a good father to him, and so he just learns all these things. And he meets this young girl who lives next door who has problems that are worse than his, and he has this kind of eye-opening experience. So good. Like when I first started reading it, listening to it, I thought it was going to be hard because of his, situation where he talks like that. Like every time you're like, oh, is this going to get, but it doesn't. It's so well done. Yeah, really, really good. 9 hours of time. Then I listened to Lock Every Door by Riley Sager, and that is a 10-hour audiobook. And no visitors, no nights spent elsewhere, no disturbing the rich and famous residents. These are the rules for Jules Larson's new job apartment sitting at the Bartholomew, one of Manhattan's most high-profile buildings. Recently heartbroken and just plain broke, Jules is taken in by the splendor and accepts the terms, ready to leave her past life behind. She's going to go live for months in house apartment sit. She's going to get paid, and then things go terribly wrong, right? Murder mystery, lots of weird stuff going on, kind of a thriller. Very good. Very good. I sometimes don't like scary, but this never got there. This was psychological stuff too. Oh, and then I read another T.J. Klune because of those darn boys at Needles at the Ready. They're always reading T.J. Klune, and so it came up because I put them on hold, and then when they come available, I just read whatever next. Welcome to Sharon's Crossing. The tea is hot, the scones are fresh, and the dead are just passing through. When a reaper comes to collect Wallace from his own funeral, Wallace begins to suspect he might be dead. And when Hugo, the owner of a peculiar tea shop, promises to help him cross over, Wallace decides he's definitely dead. But even in death, he's not ready to abandon the life he barely lived, so when Wallace is given 1 week to cross over, he sets about living a lifetime in 7 days. Yeah, this is a feel-good. Really, he's a jerk. When he's alive, he's a lawyer. He treats people terribly. That's how the book opens, and you're just like, oh. And then he has a reckoning, and it touches your heart. So well done. Really, really enjoyed. So I can't say enough about some of these books. All right, and the last one. Oh, the premise of this one. I didn't love this one as much as the others, but you can't have a 5 out of 5 on every book, right? Some of you might really like this, and this is by Rebecca Serle, and we've been waiting for an hour. That's what Audrey says. She states it with a little bit of an edge. Her words are just bordering on cursive. That's the thing I think first, not Audrey Hepburn is at my birthday dinner, but Audrey Hepburn is annoyed. At one point and another, we've all been asked to name 5 people, living or dead, with whom we'd like to have dinner. Why do we choose the people we do? And what if that dinner was to actually happen? So that's the premise of the story. These 5 people get together because they're on her list. If she dies, these are the 5 people you would have dinner with. And Audrey Hepburn is one of them. And the reasons that she has certain people on her list come to light, and then it's an evening in the life of this woman who has chosen for different reasons these people and why they're there, her best friend, and how they've become a little estranged. So really fascinating premise, right? But I had a hard time suspending belief at first. I was like, why these people? This is awkward. It seems weird that these people are here, but that's the part of the story. It takes a while for you to uncover why they're all there and why she chose them. So, gosh, 4 out of 5, all the books this time. I just haven't had a dud for a while, and it's so awesome. I had to listen so much in the last 2 weeks just to keep myself grounded and centered and just knit and try to, listen to something that takes your mind off the craziness of what you have going on in your life and in your world. Everything will work out. It's fine. Tom will come. The contractor will come. The stain design lady will come. Our life will get managed. Someone will manage it for us, because obviously we're not doing it very well on our own. That's all I have for you this week. I will be around in 2 weeks for episode 100, which is so fun. I think maybe your homework should be to bring a treat with you to the next episode. So when you sit down to watch episode 100, bring dessert. Bring yourself something. I will have something. I'll have a Diet Coke. I'll have something. We'll share some type of treat. I don't know. Maybe we'll light 100 candles. Anyway, I'm so thankful for all of you. I hope you're hanging in there. Come in for your hug. Here we go. I hope that you have a great 2 weeks. I will see you next time. Keep it colorful. Keep your fork. Buy the gravy. You'll never regret ripping out. No green bananas. Waddle on. Love you all. Don't go complaining with your mouth full. That's the moral of today's story. My mouth is full. I'm fine. Not complaining. Bye.